my kind of mentality is that, I want to bring up everyone behind me to grow so that I can move on and grow as well. I think we all should be growing.
Welcome to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers Podcast. Each episode will bring you conversations from business leaders and up-and-coming stars in the commercial real estate industry in Canada. Our guests will share their unique career journeys, passions, and advice on what it takes to be successful in this industry. This podcast is brought to you by Highview Partners, connecting people who perform in Canadian real estate.
I am your host, James Ashley, and today I will be connecting you with Kyle Thorn. Kyle is the operations manager at BentallGreenOak in Toronto. He oversees the operations team at 10 Dundas, and in 2020, his team won the prestigious TOBY award for retail. He has climbed his way through the ranks for over a decade and has worked for a number of reputable firms along the way, including Dream, 20 Vic, and Cushman and Wakefield. He believes strongly in the power of knowledge, and so he has invested much of his spare time in furthering his education to learn the ins and the outs of building operations. A passionate young professional with a hunger to learn and grow inside the real estate industry, it is my pleasure to introduce Kyle Thorn. Kyle, it's a pleasure to have you with us here today. I am really excited about this next podcast. Let's start by talking about your career journey. How did you get your start in the industry?
Yeah, so I started at a company called White Rock. I was hired as a junior building operator there. A family friend of ours was in the industry, started telling me about the industry, and up until then I didn't really know much about it. You kind of drive by all these buildings and don't stop to think that there's a whole team of people that takes care of that, right? So I just started to say, okay, this could be interesting for me. I took some courses and I was able to start at that job, and it was very basic in the beginning. I remember sweeping up leaves and cleaning T-bars and doing that kind of entry-level position stuff. But I worked really hard, and that was a really good job for me.
Why was it building operations? There's many different avenues and pathways that you can take in real estate. Why did you choose operations?
Yeah, I think prior to that, I had done a co-op in plumbing and framing, and I was always handy in kind of building things. And I thought that operations was a really good way to blend all those things together. I didn't have to be an expert in any one area; I just had to have knowledge, and I could be exposed to an electrician and a plumber and a roofer, and it kind of was this amalgamation of all of those things that I was interested in. It seemed perfect.
Now, in terms of investing in your learning, your education, let's break this into a few parts here. So firstly, education. What have you taken on to develop your skills to be the best building operations professional that you could be?
Before I had gotten that first job, I went out and took two BES classes. At that time, I had no idea what I was doing. I was taking the boiler course. I'd never seen a boiler. But as when I first got that junior operator job, I was continuing on with the courses. And that really helped me out because I could take the courses, in the evening and then come to work and actually see that equipment on site, which was really helpful for me to read about it and be able to put my hands on it the next morning. I started with my BES classes. After that, I moved on to my SMA, which is a BOMA course, because I was, trying to advance my career, step into a supervisor's position. From then, I went on to do my lead courses. I got my lead GA, my lead AP. I took a Schulich course through York University for project management, which was really valuable for me. And now I'm working on my RPA. So there's always something.
For the listeners that aren't familiar with LEAD and SMA, can you share a little bit about what it entails on those courses?
LEAD, which stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. There's a lot of categories. If you're getting into the industry, you're going to notice, LEED plaques out front of buildings. Everyone's very proud when they attain LEED. So LEED is a certification that a building can get, but an individual can also be LEED certified, which explains that you understand the LEED program. You understand what the credits are for, how to achieve them, why they're important, what their intent is. You're basically a LEED expert if you're a LEED AP. That's what that is. And you do learn a lot about sustainability through taking that. It's not just about being a lead expert. You're really kind of broadening your horizons as far as sustainability is concerned. And the SMA program is a BOMA course, right? BOMA is for real estate professionals. The BES class is kind of the hands-on stuff, the plumbing, electrical, air handling, those sorts of things. SMA is more geared to being a supervisor, right? You have courses like managing the organization, ethics, some of the things that, as a building operator, ethics is for everybody. But as a building operator, this is more than those kind of hands-on skills that you've been learning. This is more about leading a team.
And what did you learn on the project management course that you did?
And on the project management course with Schulich through York University, that was a 3-day course strictly on project management. I can't remember the name of the teacher now, but she was amazing. They broke down every detail of project management, from procurement, how to manage your time, how to manage meetings, how to manage your paperwork, how to stay on budget. It was very, very in detail. That project was geared for someone that might want to run a $500 million project, right? This was like, they took it all the way. I needed to gain some general knowledge on project management, and this really covered all the bases for me.
Let's move on now to mentoring, and you have been a mentee. Talk to us about your experiences of going through a mentorship program, and how has that served and helped you in moving forward your career?
I think that everybody needs good mentors. I don't think that always your boss is that mentor. When I first started out in the industry, the guys that I was working with at the time, the building operators there, had been around a lot longer than me and knew a lot of stuff. And, spending time with them was really valuable for me, right? Like, they kind of looked out for me. They showed me what was going on. I could ask them questions that I wasn't comfortable asking my boss, maybe. I think that you can find mentors anywhere, right? You can find mentors through a coworker. It may be your boss. It may be a manager of a different department that you get along with, you see eye to eyes with, maybe someone that isn't in the industry at all, right? I think you need to put some energy into finding those people, people that you respect, that you look up to, and that you trust. And they can be anywhere, right? I wouldn't always look to your direct manager to be your mentor, and that person may be, and they may be a great one. I'd be a little creative. And if you have to go outside of the industry, maybe your mentor is your father, your mother.
Absolutely. It can come in many forms. And I think it's important to just be clear on what is it that I am out to learn. And then as a result of that, you can begin to choose the people strategically that are going to help give you the guidance and the direction towards what it is that you are looking to learn. Let's now step into associations. There's a number of different associations in the real estate industry, some on a larger scale, some on a smaller scale. What associations have you been involved with, and how has that benefited you and your development?
When I first started out, when I was a building operator, there was an organization called TBMOA, which is more geared toward managers, building operators, and service providers, right? They'd meet on a monthly basis, and there was always a keynote speaker, and that keynote speaker would always be a service provider in the controls industry, waste removal, filtration. So at that time, it was really good because I was able to meet people that were doing the same job that I was doing, kind of talk with them outside of work with a different setting where we're kind of relaxed and openly speaking, and then be able to ask these, keynote speakers certain questions that, I've never met these people, and they had a really kind of great discussion, and I had some questions for them, which is nice because you're not asking your coworkers or your manager. Maybe you don't want to ask those questions to them. It kind of gives you another opportunity to learn, right? Or maybe find a mentor. So that I enjoyed at first, and it's still a great organization. I'm just where I live. I can't attend; it's too far for me now. But I have joined BOMA. I think you're quite familiar with BOMA. I think a lot of people are. So I'm a member of BOMA, and I'm also on the judges panel for Certificate of Excellence.
What have you learned during your time with BOMA?
Well, BOMA is a great resource, right? BOMA is building a community. They're connecting people in the industry, like-minded people. It's our association, really. I think that BOMA is important. They provide resources. It's not about just bringing people together. They're providing resources. Right now we're going through a global pandemic, and I know that they're working on ways for us to reopen our buildings in a way that keeps everyone safe, right? They're more than just bringing people together.
Absolutely. They are advocates for change. They're advocates for growth, for learning, for sharing information. And certainly one of the leading, if not the leading, property management associations across Canada. Let's now talk about how education has helped Kyle get to where Kyle has needed to be. So thinking across the different programs that you've done, the BES, the SMA, the LEED certifications, how has that helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah, that's a good question. The way that I kind of went about all this is that I was always taking courses that were really valuable for me at that time. I started taking the BES courses when I didn't know a lot about operations. I took the SMA course when I wanted to become a supervisor, but I wasn't a supervisor yet. I started working at a very sophisticated building that was going for LEED Platinum. So I started taking my LEED courses. So it was all very kind of by design, right? I wanted to be taking things that were relevant to me now, the information I could get and use now, which is how I've kind of always structured it. And I think that, I like to kind of touch on the initiative part because, if I hadn't have taken my BS courses, I probably wouldn't have gotten that first job. And if I didn't take my SMA course, I wouldn't have become a supervisor at some point, right? I think it's more than, you're taking this course because you want to, and you want to retain that knowledge. And obviously, these courses are valuable. You can't be promoted and do the work later. Doesn't work like that, right? So if people that are just starting out, I know that some people don't want to take the BS courses, especially if you're already an HVAC tech or something and you really understand. And if you are, by the way, you can likely be exempt from some of these courses, which is good to know. But you gotta do the work first, right? And a lot of that does come from these education pieces.
And during the hiring process, working with hiring managers in the operations and technical services space in the industry, their eyes are going straight to the resume in terms of BES 1 and 2. Qualifications do they have specific to the industry? It is very much a qualification-led discipline, as are most of the disciplines in real estate, but particularly operations, just given the technical subject matters that you come into contact with and you interface with. Now that we've got to learn about your start in the industry, how you've invested in yourself, let's talk about what you enjoy. Like, what is it about this particular discipline? What is it about building operations that really stands out for you and has kept you for the past 10 years inside of building operations?
I've always been a people person. The really nice thing about building operations is that you're interacting with your team, you're interacting with the tenants, service providers, contractors. When a tenant has an issue and you solve that issue, it's a really nice feeling. They have to go to work every day and sit at that desk, and if they're uncomfortable and you're the person that can solve that for them, it's a really good feeling. Being able to kind of connect with so many different people in any one given day is really nice, right? I think if you consider yourself a people person, then it would be a job that you should be interested in, right? I mean, not only are these service providers, but other facets of the business, construction, leasing, it's kind of endless.
Kyle, now that you've climbed your way up to an operations manager and you're involved in the hiring process, when the resumes come across your desk, what is it that you're looking for when you're hiring a building operator? And perhaps we can also touch upon an operations supervisor too.
I think that, depending on what kind of position you're hiring for, a more senior operator would definitely have to have some BES courses, all of them, or something equivalent. BOMA has an SMT, which is equivalent. So, for a senior guy, we're looking for those things. Even for a junior guy, we're looking for them to have started them. I think it would probably take you 2 years to do if you take it at a comfortable pace. So, a junior building operator, I don't expect to take these courses for 2 years necessarily, but you have to have shown the initiative that you are taking them, that you're trying, or that you have some sort of background in a trade or some knowledge of how buildings work. It's very untypical now to see people without their BS courses, I think.
And stepping aside from education, and if you're moving into a more senior role, experience is obviously necessary. Let's talk about the person. Let's talk about the characteristics and the personality of an individual that would work well. Is there a particular type, or have you seen during your experience that it really varies from team to team and person to person?
I think that you hire for personality and you can teach them the rest. If they have the right, attitude towards work, if they're willing to work hard, I find that hard work prevails. It counts for a lot. If you have those kind of qualities where you're willing to learn, you're willing to work, you're open-minded, we're interested in that. If you're showing some initiative to take some courses, perfect.
Are you looking for a trusted recruiter who lives and breathes Canadian real estate? At Highview, we bring over 30 years of recruiting experience to help steer you in the right direction. We are passionate about your success in this industry and will always do our best to provide you with all the information so that you can make the best decision for your career. Contact Highview Partners today to discover how we can connect you to people who perform.
Kyle, we're going to move on to the second part of our conversation now and talk about what pushes you forward. This is a time when we talk about the drivers and the motivators and have helped you to elevate your career. So firstly, of all the places you've worked, what is the work environment that has elevated your performance the most?
I don't picture one building or one place or one tenant maybe per se. I picture the most difficult ones. It's funny that when you're in that situation, you're kind of, under pressure, you're uncomfortable, you may not have the right strategy, things may not be going how you plan them to go. It's tough, right? But when you're kind of in that, it kind of forces you to think outside the box, get a little creative, think about different approaches, which you wouldn't have had to have done if, it was steady as she goes, right? In those moments you really grow, and that can't be learned anywhere else.
Is there a particular moment that stands out for you in your career where you can look back and say, that was really tough, but that taught me a really valuable lesson?
Yeah, when projects go bad, because there's money involved, there's the timeline's important. This business may not be able to open. The ownership may not be able to collect rent. It's a huge deal, and those are uncomfortable. I've only had to be a part of very few. One that I can remember quite well, but that's uncomfortable, and there's a lot at stake, right? There's a lot of people that are invested in a large project, and it can be very uncomfortable.
And what did you learn from that experience going forward, and how has that made a difference in your career?
I think whether you're fault in a situation like that or not, you don't do it. You don't make that mistake too many times. When you go into another project, you're organized. You have all the paperwork, you have all the emails, you've organized yourself in a way for all the pre-construction documents that you need to have. You're making sure that you're touching base with the certain people that you should be, reminding them if they're behind on something. Like, you just become more organized. Everyone wants a project to go well. Everybody, when you've been through a bad one, you like to be prepared enough to avoid it completely.
We've talked about the ability to motivate teams and build teams on a number of the other podcasts. I'm curious to know about a time when you've been part of an unmotivated team. And what did you do during that time to stay motivated and make the work interesting?
I think that probably everyone has been a part of an unmotivated team. If your very first part-time job, I doubt everyone that worked there was super motivated, right? I think that you got to focus on yourself, and you can't let yourself kind of get into this group think or let other people's bad habits wear off on you, whether that's laziness or whatever. There's a whole list of characteristics those could be. You can't let those affect you. You have to focus on yourself. For me, I like to be goal oriented, and I just kind of set expectations for myself, whether it's timelines on getting things done or things I want to achieve, because you can't control everybody else, but you can control yourself. You can take care of that. So that's important. Another thing that I do is I always have a passion project. So what I mean by that is, talked about organization just recently. I use Microsoft OneNote. If you are having a hard time getting your thoughts out of your brain in an organized way, try OneNote. It's so good. So I have a tab in my OneNote called Passion Projects. And so what that is for me right now is waste reduction, right? So the property I work at, we can improve, and I want to do that, right? So I kind of get my ideas down there. I can, put timelines on things, set meeting dates, all this sort of stuff. And so, when I'm feeling a little unmotivated, I can open up that passion project, and it kind of like ignites a fire in me again. And I mean, it's totally relevant to my job. So it's useful for me, it's useful for the company, and it just kind of like brings back some like vibrancy in me. And I think everyone can have a passion project, right? It doesn't have to be waste, or it could be energy related. It could be bringing in native plants instead of invasive ones to your property. Like this could be, you could take this anywhere.
I think it's a great way to describe it. We're all clear and aware of the value of having a vision, having goals, having aspirations, having something to aim towards and achieve, is having a passion project, and finding that passion project, and also how that passion project can then motivate others to step up.
Right.
It's yes, it begins with you, but there is also the opportunity there to influence other people and bring them into that project as well.
When it's all said and done, and you've kind of accomplished what you've set out to do, it's nice to say, look what we did here. Right? Look what we did. That kind of keeps you going back. You're always going to have one on the go once you kind of get the taste of that.
Looking ahead now to the next 5 years in your career, continuing on the theme of the passion hobbies and the visions and the goals, what have you set for yourself in terms of your direction, and where are you moving forward to in the next chapter?
Yeah, I like that question. I've always had a goal, I think, right? And I think you just kind of set new goals for yourself. I think everyone should have a 5-year goal, no matter where you are in your career, or, what industry you're in. It doesn't matter. For me, I've spent, 10 years in operations, right? I started out as a junior building operator. I've learned a lot. I probably have 10, 15 plus more years of knowledge to gain in operations. But what I want to do now is become a more diverse real estate professional, right? I want to, I've always been on a quest to learn, right? I took all these courses, I took a boiler course when I didn't even know what a boiler looked like. I've been on that path for so long, and there's aspects of the business that I don't know well, and I don't want to go my whole career not knowing those well and understanding them. So I think for me, now transitioning over to, the PM side, right? Ideally for me, I think I'd like to move into a GM role after this, and kind of get my hands in more of the leasing stuff, right? More of the marketing stuff, things that I, I'm involved in, but I don't actually, manage. I'm just a part of the team. Gaining more knowledge and being more well-rounded is what I'm after right now, I think.
So when someone is looking to make a transition, when somebody is looking to perhaps move from one area of the business to another area of the business, and make that rotation, what's some of the advice that you would give them in terms of how you can step up to create that new opportunity?
I think most importantly, what it takes is being vocal with your manager. You have to let them know what it is you want to do. And I ask my guys this too, so that I truly know where they're going, what they want to do. And if I can help them, shape them on that path, I will. And if an opportunity comes up, I'll know that they're interested in that, right? You can't assume that your manager knows that you want to be the supervisor or whatever. You have to let them know. If you have a good manager, he's going to help you achieve that goal. My kind of mentality is that, I want to bring up everyone behind me to grow so that I can move on and grow as well. I think we all should be growing. So you have to be vocal first. If you don't put it out there, and you don't let the universe know what you're after, you're going to have a hard time, I think.
I have spoken to other building operation professionals who have also looked to make a transition from the ops side to the property management side. And one of the things that worked well for them was just raising their hand. And when there was ever an opportunity to get involved in a team meeting, to get involved in a project, there was a steering committee of any sorts, they were there at the table. They had their hand in the air, and they were ready to just jump on that opportunity to learn. So there is definitely a power in being vocal. And there is also a power in just getting stuck in, getting involved in any opportunity that is there for you to learn.
Totally. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Anything else that you can kind of be a part of is totally worthwhile.
Let's get to know the man away from the tools, away from the boilers and the chillers. And let's learn more about you and get to know you better, Kyle. So let me take you back to your childhood. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a fighter jet pilot.
Right.
You've probably seen the movie Top Gun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. not as many times as I have. Probably 150. I think Tom Cruise raised me. My parents just said, "Here, you watch this again if you love it so much." I don't know what it was, right? I was, pretty young when I was watching that movie, and I don't know. It was fighter jet pilot for a long time.
I perhaps haven't watched Top Gun as many times as you have, but within 2 weeks of moving to Toronto in October, it was Halloween. I was at one of these party costume wearing stores out in the west end of the city, and there was very slim options. And I learned very quickly living in Canada that Halloween is a big thing, and you really have to plan ahead for your outfit. So I did end up wearing the Maverick fighter jet suit.
I totally approve.
When you're away from the business and you're winding down, what are some of the things that you enjoy outside of work?
There's a number of things. What comes to mind for me is photography. I know that you share that same passion.
Absolutely, we do indeed.
I think when you have the camera in your hand, you're just kind of, you're thinking about the shot. You're not thinking about work or, anything else that might be going on in your life. You're just kind of, exploring. You're taking the shot. You're thinking about things in different ways, looking at things in different ways. And a thing that I really like is the idea of getting a shot so good that you could print and give to somebody as a gift, or to hang on your wall for yourself, right? I know that I've done that a few times, and without getting too touchy feely here, that piece of art might last forever in a way. It's something you can kind of leave or gift someone that's eternal, right?
Well, your creative flair in photography has certainly had an impact on our business. And if anyone is to visit highviewpartners.ca, many of the headshots there and also the photos of the city were taken by yours greatly, Kyle Thorn. So thank you very much for your support in that. What has been for you a moment in photography that you remember the most?
Oh man, I've taken so many. It's hard to choose. I think that when you're taking photos of someone else and you get a great shot, and I can remember a few times, and you show that person and they're excited and you're kind of like sharing that moment with them, that's really nice, right? You kind of get the satisfaction on your own if you get a great landscape shot or a cityscape shot and no one else is around, but to take a picture of someone and kind of share that is really nice. Right?
Yeah, it's a special moment. Just throwing in a random question here for the fun of it. Have you ever been told that you look like somebody famous?
No, not really. Apparently there's a guy on Prison Break that I look
Never
like.
Watched it. Okay.
I don't know. I've never seen it either. I've only heard that a few times. No idea what the guy looks like or whatever, but yeah, I imagine he's pretty handsome, I guess.
Kyle, thank you for sharing with us your story and your journey through commercial real estate. To wrap up, what piece of advice would you be giving to somebody who is looking to make their first steps into this industry?
I've been told this a bunch of times, and it's still totally relevant, which is you want to absorb as much information as you can. When you're first starting out, there's no limit to how many questions you can ask. I remember when I was first starting out, I'd spend a lot of time with contractors, right? Some people would just kind of get the contractor set up and leave them, whereas I would be over their shoulder like, what's that for? How does this work? Why does that do that? A million questions. I must have drove these people crazy. It's like a 4-year-old discovering the world. So I think that's important, taking as much info as you can. No one expects you to know everything, but now's your chance to learn, and you have the best playground to learn in.
Thank you for listening to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers podcast brought to you by Highview Partners, a talent search and recruitment firm focused exclusively on Canadian real estate. If your real estate team is looking to find the best next hire, or if you're ready to make the best next move in your career, then reach out to Highview Partners today. Follow us on LinkedIn and visit us at highviewpartners.ca.